Today's agenda is the introduction by me, Michael Birch, strategic planning for nonprofits presented by me, Michael Birch. Marketing strategy for nonprofits will be presented by Louis Farfan, and digital tools for nonprofit marketing will be presented by Don Lamb. Following that, I will do a brief presentation on resources, and then Don Lamb will wrap it up with conclusion and open up the question and answer session. Given the time constraints and the topics to cover, we request that questions be held until the question and answer session. Thank you. So we're a Pivotal Consulting Group. As I mentioned, I'm Michael Birch, the Chief Executive. Don Lamb, one of our founders, is the Director of Development. Luis Farfan is another founder. He's a Chief Marketing Strategist. And James Burge is our Marketing Manager, who cannot be with us today. So, strategic planning. One of the things I've come to realize as I've been involved in many strategic plans, strategy is the easy part. It's the tactics that are the hard part. I'm often asked whenever we discuss strategic planning, what is strategy? Strategy involves setting goals and priorities, determining actions to achieve those goals, and mobilizing the resources to execute those actions. A strategy describes how the ends, the goals, will be achieved by the means or the resources. It involves activities such as strategic thinking, strategic planning, and strategic management. This picture graphic represents what I consider to be the strategic process. It begins with strategic thinking, which then is developed into strategic planning process, and then goes into developing strategic management process. So in a sense, strategy is transformed from concept into actions. The resources for a nonprofit typically involve their board of directors, staff members, volunteers, collaborations with other organizations, funding sources, political connections, and obviously whatever financial and physical assets that you have at your disposal. Programs typically involve community service work, social support networks, political advocacy programs, relationship building, community engagement, and many others. The picture of the pagoda represents what I call the pagoda effect. Everything flows from the top down to each successive lower level, down to ultimately to the ground level. So the pagoda effect represents the concept that an overall strategic direction is developed at the leadership level and flows downward into more detailed and specific strategic direction for the specific resources and programs to support the overall strategy. This ensures both efficiency and effectiveness of resource utilization in the pursuit of both short and long-term goals. Strategic thinking, and one of the things I've came to understand, particularly as it relates to strategic planning, is the collective wisdom of any group is far superior to any individual in that group. Strategic thinking is a generation and application of unique business insights and opportunities intended to create competitive advantage for a firm or an organization, be it nonprofit or for-profit. Collaborative strategic thinking basically employs the collective wisdom of any group and creates value by a proactive and creative exploration of various approaches to accomplishing those objectives. Strategic planning is a bridge to strategic management where the chosen strategies are turned into action plans. Strategic plan is a tool to communicate, guide, and control organizational activities. There are numerous strategic planning models, but they're all basically just structured ways of thinking. Small to medium nonprofits suffer from staff and resource limitations. They typically don't have the time, money, or human resources to be able to engage for long periods of time into these detailed strategic planning models. So one of the ways that nonprofits can use the concepts is to use these concepts that the models are based upon without grinding through the process. The way that you do that is to embrace the concepts as the way that you think and act. So how does this apply to a nonprofit? The strategic intent is to have a vision of your desired future state that is not bound by the current state, which basically means that your vision of the future is not limited to what you currently have today to accomplish that vision. So a for-profit business, their focus is to make money for their owners of the business, maximize the profit, earnings per share, and shareholder value. They have a very clear mission and purpose. It's the profit motive. Customers buy goods or pay for services, and the customers have many choices. Typically, they have a staff dedicated to marketing and sales, as well as producing the products and um, basically keeping track of the daily operations. They have a well-developed marketplace. Employee motivation is based on personal economic satisfiers, and it's a very strong motivator. Nonprofit business, on the other hand, is mission-driven for the benefit of others. They maximize the impact for the underserved members of society. The founders often lack a focus on financial needs of the business for survival and basically have a vision of a mission to accomplish, but may have very little business knowledge of how to run a business. Customers consume the services, but they're not the ones that pay for the services. If they do, they have very limited resources to pay to cover the cost of the services, but they also have limited alternatives to turn to. Small to medium nonprofits do not have dedicated fundraisers. What this means is that the board members and the staff and the chief executive of the nonprofit organization spend a lot of time and resources trying to find out where the money's going to come from, how to manage that money effectively, and how to accomplish the programs. The staff motivation, as well as the board motivation, based upon lower expectations, both for personal economic satisfiers. They're more focused on feelings of gratification of psychological needs. And the nonprofit competes with for-profit wage scales. So then the nonprofit conundrum. You look at if your strategic focus is that you start out with a small number of people or groups that you're able to serve, and you have a small number of programs within which to serve that client base. And your overall objective in your strategy is to increase the number of people or groups that you serve and to increase the number of programs or increase the depth and breadth of those programs for the people that you serve. So then how are you going to go from strategy to tactics? If you're here at the bottom left-hand quadrant and you want to get to the upper right-hand quadrant, what do you have to help you get there? And what are you going to need along the way that you don't have? Then the other question is, how are you going to get what you need? And the other question is, what are you going to do with the resources that you have today that won't be making that journey long term? So the questions that have to be answered are you going to try to do it yourself, or are you going to outsource it? Are you going to collaborate with other groups, or are you going to compete with them? How are you going to fund it? Are you going to rely upon donations, grants, contracts, or get paid for services that you provide? Then the other question, then, if you look at the board are the ones that develop policies and procedures, guidelines, et cetera, and they're also primarily responsible for making sure that the organization is properly funded. The chief executive reports to the board. Board oftentimes is an all-volunteer board. And if you have a staff, then your question then is how are you going to pay for the staff and that type of thing? What kind of people do you need on the staff, or what kind of qualifications? And in a lot of cases, your board will also be performing staff level work. Now, typically, the chief executive reports to the board. Now, if the board are doing staff level work, in that position, they're reporting to the chief executive. So these are all questions that need to be considered. Then the other question is, how are you going to make sure that you're being efficient and effective in utilizing scarce resources. The key here is to have a laser focus on people, programs, and money, and focus everything on accomplishing your mission. Strategic management is where the organization's resources are identified and assigned their respective strategic objectives. Strategic objectives are translated into the major goals and initiatives that drive the development of tactics needed to realize them. Everyone's individual role is clearly defined and supportive of the overall strategy. The result is goal congruency. Everybody is working towards a common objective, in sync and focused. And I give, as an example of this, a dragon boat team. And I think everybody's probably familiar with dragon boats, given the dragon boat races that took place this year with the Carolinas Asian American Chamber of Commerce. So one of the things I noticed as I looked at this picture is the last four paddlers are out of sync.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. My name is Luis Farfan, and I am excited to talk about how we help nonprofits reach supporters and keep them engaged. We'll be using Earring's Mayor's cultural map and Pierre Bourdieau's forms of capital to connect with different donors and guide them through their donor journey. The cultural map helps us know if a donor prefers quick info or building a relationship first. By identifying the forms of capital like economic, financial ability, cultural, shared values, social connections, and symbolic reputation, we can engage each donor in the ways that matter most, from first awareness to long-term support. Let's start with slide 12. What does a nonprofit market? Nonprofit tells donors about their image, what they look like to others, programs, the things they do to help, success, stories of how they helped, strengths, things they are good at, causes, what they care about, and needs, what they need help with. Slide 13 through 14. Who does a nonprofit market to? Nonprofits talk to all kinds of supporters. Some donors give big donations, some give little every month, and some even plan to give in their will. Companies sometimes give money to help, and governments give grants. Big funds that support our projects. There are also foundations that give money and donors who help by donating services or products instead of money. So, like I said in slide 13, can you please go back to 13? You can see the categories, which are on the individual level, in which is separated by major donors, small donors, planned giving donors, corporate donors, which is categorized in two sections: corporate foundations, direct corporate giving, and then we have government, which can be either federal or state grants, foundations, private community family foundations, 14. And then we have institutional donors that can include religious and education institutions, online peer-to-peer donors, crowdfunding and peer-to-peer foundations, special event donors, gala or events. We see this with the Asian American Commerce, who recently had a gala, and any other nonprofits that they might have special events to collect donations and donors. And then we have in-kind donors, which can be categorized as goods and service donations. Understanding these donors categories help us in crafting targeted marketing strategies that resonates with their unique motivations and values. Slide 15. Donor sensitivity and forms of capital overview. These tools help us see what's important to donors who give. We think about economic capital, which means that they can afford to give. Cultural capital means we connect with things they care about. And social capital is about using friendship and networks. Who knows who? Lastly, symbolic capital is about building trust and show we are doing a good work. It's more about reputation. Go ahead. Let's go in slide 16. On slide 16, Erie Major Cultural Map, understanding your donor audience. Some donors like clear, quick communication. They want the facts right away. Others prefer building a relationship, learning about us, and trusting us over time. So we change how we talk depending on what a donor likes or what they prioritize. Go ahead, slide 17. We think about how different donors view time and decisions. Some donors want quick results right away, and some want longer term commitment. Power distancing means that some donors like working in teams while others want a leader to guide things. So we match our approach to what works best for each person. Application is all about putting these ideas into action. We treat each donor or supporter like they have their own style. For example, individual donors can be seen as high context, care about transparency, and the personal impact of their money have in the community. Companies, which can be seen as low context, like to see and highlight how their partnership impact the community. This could be more of in a sense of being more objective, such as numbers, statistics, and so on. And now we have government and foundations. In government, foundation can be a mix of low context and high context. For example, with government, with the grants, they want us to show we are meeting their goals. And with foundations, depending on what type of foundation it is, whether it is a foundation for family foundation or corporate foundation, they want us to support long-lasting smart ideas. So if you were to look at it in government and foundation, and how they are and how they can be mixed. So depending on what your goal is, if you're going for popularity among the community, then yes, you can see how being in high context is very essential, as you are keeping in mind how the narrative of the donor's contribution impact the community. And if you look at it from the sense of low context, you are looking at more objective goals, statistics, and numbers, how everything changed over time. Now, if we go on slide 19. Donor's journey. It's like a path that our donors go down. First, they learn about us, which we label as awareness. Next, they think about if they want to help, and this is the consideration stage. Then, if they decide to help, they will donate. This is the donation stage. And after they donate, we keep them updated so they feel good about the supporting us. This will be considered as the post donation. And in this stage, they can also become your donors can become your own advocates. Now we go to slide 20. This section showcases how nonprofits have adapted their strategies for different donor types. For instance, a nonprofit that works with low context private tech companies saw success by emphasizing measurable impact, by appeal to the tech companies' data-driven mindset. Another nonprofit successfully engaged in high context government grants by focusing on long-term community relationship, building trust over time. A consumer-focused nonprofit reached both low and high context audience by creating campaigns that highlight cultural values and tailor communication. Slide 21. Challenges and solutions. It's about how we handle different types of donors. Some like direct, clear messages, and some like to get to know us slowly. We solve this by talking to each type in a way they like. Another challenge is balancing the donors want with our needs, and we do that by being flexible. And that wraps up my section. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. And now I'll hand it over to Donglan for website discussion and other tools that will be useful for your nonprofit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Louis. I hope everyone is doing well today. In the beginning, we had Michael talk about strategic planning, which focuses on working within the organization to create strategies and actions that guides you towards your ideal state, your ideal future as an organization. Lewis then shifted the focus outward, sharing insights on how your organizations can engage with different types of donors to secure the funding needed to implement those strategies. Now, I'll wrap up this by talking about some of the tools nonprofits can use to engage, convert, and retain supporters. These digital tools empower your organizations to maximize your outreach, build trust, and make a bigger impact, all while keeping things cost effective. So let's go to slide 22. Now slide 22 talks about two main categories of tools. We have the mainstream tools like TVs, radios, and then we have the digital channels like your social media platforms and websites, LinkedIn, Google profiles, and such. The digital channels and digital tools provides for more flexibility and affordable costs. So let's go to slide 23 and we'll talk about the website. Yeah, so let's talk about why every nonprofit needs a website. On slide 23 and 24, you'll see a list of elements that essentially are checklists that your website should include. Since these slides will be downloadable online, I won't read all the points for you, so I'll just talk about the reasons why the website itself is important instead. Reason number one, for visibility. A website allows donors, volunteers, and partners to learn about your mission anytime, expanding your reach beyond local events or social media. Number two, it's a powerful storytelling platform. Through your website, you can share impactful stories, photos, testimonials, and statistics that show real differences that your organization is making and create emotional connections with your viewers and visitors. Number three, it's about building trust. A professional website builds credibility. By sharing transparent financial information, listing your board members, and showcasing achievements, you reassure visitors and potential donors of your trustworthiness. Number four, websites allows for receiving easy donations. A clear donate button makes online contributions easy and accessible, encouraging more frequent giving. And finally, your website is a central communication hub. The website serves as a hub for news, events, and volunteer opportunities, and visitors can subscribe to stay informed and engaged. Let's go to slide 25. In addition to website, another essential tool for building visibility and credibility is Candid or GuideStar. And here are some reasons why having a candid profile is important. When we talk about visibility and credibility, the GuideStar profile allows you to showcase your legitimacy. Many donors and foundations use this platform when deciding to support a nonprofit. Access to funding is important. A detailed profile here makes you more attractive to funders who verify grant recipients through this platform. Many of the grants that we wrote for the different nonprofits that we helped, for example, are integrated with GuideStar. So they allow you to update your profile on GuideStar through the application, and they also use the GuideStar profile to pull in your information as an organization so they can decide and compare to other potential grantees. And talking about building trust with donors, again, being transparent with your finances and mission builds donor confidence and trust. And you can download financial statements from GuideStar, and you can upload your financial statements to GuideStar where the donors can download. And finally, it helps to continue building your online presence. A GuideStar profile also improves your search ranking, helps more people discover and support you. So in addition to a website and a GuideStar profile, social media and email marketing helps you connect with your audience. Platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn allows real-time updates, while email allows you to keep supporters engaged with personalized updates. And finally, as nonprofits, there are other specialized tools that you have access to. Like, for example, Google for Nonprofits, which allows you to have advertising grants of up to $10,000 a month. Or TechSoup for discounted resources. And TechSoup actually works well with Google for Nonprofit because Google for Nonprofits uses TechSoup to verify you as a nonprofit before it activates your account on their platform. And of course, let's not forget GiveButter or Zeffy for online donations, events, and raffle. Personally, I prefer Zeffy over GiveButter for over a few reasons. For example, no fees. Zeffy operates with zero transaction fees, covering credit card processing costs. In contrast, while GiveButter has a low fee structure, it still charges transaction fees if donors don't voluntarily cover them, which can reduce the net donations we receive. With Zeffy, your nonprofit receives 100% of every donation without deduction. Give Butter, although affordable, deducts a small portion unless donor covers the fees. Donation options and customization is another reason why I go with Zephy. Zephy offers features like recurring donation, ticket sales, peer-to-peer fundraising with full flexibility, making it a great choice for nonprofits that want to maximize every donation. Overall, Zephy is ideal for nonprofits seeking a no-cost fundraising platform, while GitButter is popular for ease of use, social sharing features, and versatile fundraising platforms through minimal fees. In summary, these digital tools empower you to build relationships, measure your impact, and further your mission. That concludes my part of the presentation. So now I turn it back to Michael to go over additional resources. Thank you. Have a good day.
So now let's talk about resources. Knowledge is power. It's important for nonprofits to understand the environment within which they operate. And obviously, if you operate within a state, it's the state that grants you your nonprofit corporation status. And the state has, in North Carolina, they have something called the North Carolina Nonprofit Corporation Act that lays out the overall guidelines and how the different laws that the nonprofit organization needs to comply with. It also outlines the duties and responsibilities of board members, and it outlines areas that result in conflicts of interest and a lot of different things. It also has a website that has a number of different tools, such as how to incorporate your nonprofit in the state, South Carolina or North Carolina, rules and regulations about charitable solicitation, and licenses that are required and under what circumstances it's required. The other entity that regulates nonprofits is the Internal Revenue Service. The Internal Revenue Service is obviously it's a federal agency. They are the ones that determine whether or not you will have a tax exempt status. Tax exempt status for a public charity nonprofit, a 501c3 typically. Tax exempt status means that the organization itself will not pay taxes on its earnings, on its net profits, and any donor that makes a donation to that publicly funded charitable nonprofit 501c3 can also take a tax deduction for it against their own personal income taxes. Publication 557 from the Internal Revenue Service outlines all of the different tax exempt statuses and what their privileges are, what compliances are required of them, what the do's and don'ts are for them as well. IRS.gov section for charities and nonprofits outlines all of the rules and regulations for charitable nonprofits. The Internal Revenue Service also has a call center. When you call them, you can expect to wait on hold for a considerable amount of time. I've been on hold with them for upwards of an hour before they take the call. Once you get them on the line, they typically are very, very helpful and will be very patient with you and give you some important guidance. Then for North Carolina, there's an organization called the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. It in itself is a nonprofit organization. They publish something called a legal compliance checklist for nonprofits, which is very clear and concise and an easy roadmap to follow. They also publish something called the Guidebook for Boards of Directors of North Carolina Nonprofits, and it's published in conjunction with the North Carolina State Bar Association. I would encourage you to look at both of those as soon as you have an opportunity. There is also something called the Chronicle of Philosophy Nonprofit Principles, which we will share with you. Another very valuable resource is the public library. The public library typically has someone on staff who is knowledgeable around nonprofit resources that the library has. In addition, the public library often has access to something called the Foundation GuideStar uh, resources, and it's free of charge. I will let you know also that you can have your own version, own subscription to the foundation, but it costs thousands of dollars. The GuideStar is a database that lists all of the nonprofits that are registered with them, both internationally and domestically across the United States in a number of different areas. It also lists government agencies making grants, contracts, et cetera, to nonprofits, as well as public and private foundations. You can do research as far as who are the foundations that are making grants in areas that you operate in. Um, you can also look to find other nonprofits that are operating that you can collaborate with them. It's a very useful tool. Then nonprofit interest groups who operate in areas just like you may consider working with them in collaboration, sharing learnings and experiences and solutions to problems. And then there's something called the Independent Sector, a guide for charities and foundations. Um, and then I mentioned before the Harvard Business Review article, Strategic Intent. Then YouTube, YouTube. It's free. And I will tell you that the foundation has many free and very valuable YouTube tutorials out there in a number of different areas for nonprofits. So we will share with you the link to this database for you to go out there and take advantage of these very valuable resources. Thank you.